Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Unlimited. Today, we are doing another coaching episode. We haven't done one this season yet, so here we are, and it is very topical. When I do coaching episodes, I usually just put out a call to the community, i.e. the social media community, and say, hey, who would like some coaching support? And people respond. I also put it to you. So if you are someone who is looking for some coaching support, maybe you're not ready to invest in coaching, but you'd like a session to get you kickstarted, and you are willing to have it recorded as anonymously as I can make it without distorting your voice, then I encourage you to sign up for a session. There's a link in the show notes. It is free. It is for you, and I use it for this podcast because I really truly believe that it is helpful to hear other people go through the process of exploration to be able to notice things in yourself. We are communal creatures, as I frequently will remind on this podcast, and we need each other. And sometimes it really is to hear one another and see our experience reflected, as well as see a different experience so that we have a different perspective. So the woman who signed up for this session reached out because she was feeling stuck with capital letters. And part of that is because she had a recent ADHD diagnosis that rocked her world and really shifted a lot of things for her in awareness. It came right after she started a new job that she was really passionate about, but aspects of it were creating a lot of struggle for her performance. And this, of course, led into some identity and career crisis feelings. She did, prior to our session, actually end up leaving that job. And so what we ended up working on was a lot of processing what it looks like to step into this unknown space, getting centered. What she was looking for was a sense of grounding, that it would be okay. And this is a lot of the work that I do. Oftentimes when people sign up to work with me, we're looking at something in particular. But you know that image of the iceberg, and you see the tip of the iceberg, but what really is going on is all underneath. And that's ultimately what we end up working on, so that what is happening on that tip of the iceberg can be addressed. I have another client that signed up to work with me on making space in her life for self-care and fitness and wellness and all of that. And she got really frustrated because what she thought was stability in her job ended up not being. And so we've ended up doing a lot of work around that. And she's like, why? And really, when we look at it, it's because that had to have some shifts. That had to shake up a little bit for room to occur for herself, because it was part of what was creating the issue that she wanted to work on. Not that we created the issue in the career change. I think that was just the universal energy. It was like, okay, she's ready. And that happens sometimes. With this client that you're going to hear in this session, getting that sense of okay in this midlife career change space was really what we ended up digging into. Some of what we explored was recentering in yourself, stepping into the unknown, identifying what's important in work, and finding your next step, trusting that the next step after that is going to become apparent as you go forward on the journey. Because really, we can only plan so far ahead with surety. The real piece is having the resilience in yourself to have the flexibility, because you are centered in what is important, to then navigate what comes in. There's a lot in this episode. I'm really excited to share it with you. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey there, I'm Valerie Friedlander, Certified Life Business Alignment Coach, and this is Unlimited. This podcast bridges the individual and the societal, scientific and spiritual, positive and negative, nerdy and no, there's just a lot of nerdy. Come on board and let's unlock a life that's as badass as you are. If this session gives you something that's like, that was exactly what I needed, what would you say had happened?
That I felt a little bit more grounded in what the next chapter of my life might look like and what it might mean for me and my partner and my family.
Okay. What do you feel like is keeping you from feeling grounded in that right now?
Everything being turned on its head. I think I might have explained, what was going on in the intake, like the questions that you ask folks. And I explained that I was kind of stuck trying to decide whether I should leave a job that I really loved and that I really cared about with a supportive environment, but just wasn't a good fit for me. And if not that, then what? So since then, in the last few weeks, I have resigned that job. A lot went into this decision, but now I'm really focused on the now what. And so there's a lot of anxiety and possibility in that. I've been in academia since I was 4. I'm turning 40 this year. And I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it makes a lot of sense to be both nervous and excited. I like to call that nerve sighted
Yeah.
because it's all that is a very similar vibration in the body. Where are you feeling called toward, or what interests you right now?
Mm. Right now, I'm really interested in work that helps me explore, play with, and make really good use of the skills I have in, I think, information data visualization. I don't know how to explain it really, but I have a long history as an educator, as a teacher. I also love designing things, and I love turning complex information or ideas into interesting, compelling, functional, informative visual representations. So I want to explore that world a little bit. Yeah, something that's exciting me right now.
Okay.
But I also recognize that, not but, and I also recognize that there's a whole world of possibility that I'm not even thinking about. And I don't want to miss possibilities either.
Mhm. That makes sense. What do you think would happen if you had to miss possibilities?
I think there have been a few points in my life where I realized something really important really late. And I would like to, I think I want to have now a broader picture of the things that could make me happy, that could make me feel fulfilled and successful rather than what should come next. And so I think what I fear is just doing the thing that comes next because it's presented to me as this is something you could do and you'd be good at this, which has been how a lot of major and great things have happened in my career. Yeah. And then learn later, like, oh, I could have explored this.
Yeah.
Or this might have, made me feel really excited and really fulfilled by the work that I'm doing.
Yeah. That is very common at this point in life. Just like you are in a very good company of like a lot of times people fall into what they do because that's what seemed available. That was what they were familiar with. That was what was
Mm-hmm.
presented. And you kind of do the next things. And then you get to a certain point where like, well, now I can choose.
Yeah.
So how do I choose? And what does that look like? And I don't want to miss out, that
Right.
FOMO, fear of missing out. Like,
Yeah.
because you can retrospectively look back and like, well, I could have taken that path and it
Right.
would have looked completely different.
Right.
So yeah.
I think this is usually an idea that I'm pretty comfortable with. Or not usually. I think over time, I've just become comfortable with the uncertainty of life. Like, I don't like to plan things 5 years ahead now because now I know that's ridiculous. Yeah, so I recognize that. And I think that's part of what's making me feel a little excited at this moment. But I think what's been particularly derailing, unmooring has been that this job that I just left was something that actually felt the most purposeful of the choices that I had made. Felt the most, I want to do this. This is work that I really value. And super, super different work than any work I'd done before, but kind of got at the heart of what I'd cared about all along. And it required a real pivot in like everything, like totally different from all of my professional background and training. And that's not a situation that's new to me. And previously I'd been able to adapt, but I really just didn't adapt to this. And in fact, it was engaging in this new kind of work that made me actually seek an ADHD diagnosis for the first time in my life. And my growing understanding of my brain made me kind of clashed with the work that I had to do. There was a lot of emotional response to that kind of took my brain bandwidth. And so it ended up being that I was actually in several ways not right for this. It wasn't right for me. And so deciding to walk away from that and sort of feeling kind of, having touched a hot stove in ways that felt very exciting, but ended up being, on the good side, incredible learning experiences about myself. And on the harder side, like real challenges to my mental health and my cognitive functioning. And so right now, part of the, I don't know what this next chapter looks like, is I have all of this new developing understanding and personal work that I'm doing. I don't know what that means for work that is actually, I don't know if this is a good word, work that's more organic for me than square peg and a round hole in it like I had been doing for a lot of time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I struggle with brevity. It's a lot of information.
No. Oh, it's fine. I can relate to that. It's not an issue. I'm curious about some pieces that you just described, but I want to check in before I go there. You said that what you really want from this session is to feel grounded in your next chapter. What would you need to know to feel grounded?
As you asked me that, I realized that might have been too lofty of a goal for this session. I think that's just generally what I'm seeking right now, is feeling grounded, that there is work out there that does make good use of my skills and isn't more of a drain on me than it is fulfilling to me. Grounded in, I think, some sense of structure and stability. Yeah, and I think from somebody with your professional perspective, from a very human perspective, that this is a thing that people go through and get through, and that there are paths through what feels like skydiving off a cliff into fog.
Yeah, it is. I've worked with a number of people who have received a late in life ADHD diagnosis, and people who have had things that shook who they understood themselves to be and where they understood themselves to exist in the world and what that meant for how they wanted to move forward. And so what you're describing is not at all unusual. And a lot of what the work is getting into a space of leaning into that unknown space and doing what I like to call coddywampling. Are you familiar with that word?
No, but I love it.
It's a British slang word. I use it frequently. It's basically to walk intentionally toward an unknown destination.
Wow. Okay. That's really striking me. I have a particular fear of, like, if it's really dark, like my body freezes up. I can't walk if I can't see the ground.
Yeah. What it sounds like is a big piece of this is creating some space and some room for yourself to be in an unknown space.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what we're conditioned in this society is that you have to know, and it has to be a particular way. It's very constrictive. So we kind of learn to be constricted, and we learn to create containers for ourselves that are much more constricted in order to function. And then when there's more room, we don't know how to handle it. And so we naturally constrict to pull ourselves in because it's protective.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of reasons, both individually as well as societally, those things happen. So like a lot of messaging, a lot of experiences that feed that kind of constriction.
Right.
So what you're describing is very normal.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing that there's work out there that makes good use of your skills and that isn't more draining. So what I'm hearing with that is that you want to feel purposeful in what you do,
Mm-hmm.
and that you want to have a space where the energy you put out isn't more than what your capacity is.
Right. I think that's accurate. And I think the first part, that I want my work to feel purposeful, I think that's something that I'm also thinking about a lot. I think part of what has been hard about this transition is how much I have my identity and my values and my sense of purpose in the world are intertwined with the types of work that I do. And I think partly because of that work and because of who I am, can be really emotionally costly. And so there's part of me that's also trying to unpack messages I have related to my work needing to feel like a calling, or needing to feel like it's really purposeful, or needing to feel like it's really worthwhile work versus just a job.
Yeah. That is another big messaging that we have, is that it has to feel purposeful. And a big piece of that is so that you don't have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's purposeful, then you just do it. And naturally, it is going to take more energy than you have capacity,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you do when you care.
Right.
So some discernment around what is the container that you want to create for your work. And purposeful doesn't have to mean that it is doing something big in the world. It can be, the purpose is that it is feeding into your ability to have another container where you pour in.
Hmm.
So what is the purpose of the work?
That makes a lot of sense.
Knowing what is important to you in this period of life, what needs a container, what needs space, is part of how you then can decide how you want to interact with those containers. How clear are you on what's most important for you right now?
I think I'm pretty clear on that. Something I struggle with is the balance of engagement with and salience of all of the different containers. But I do feel pretty clear on what those containers are and how they're important to me.
Okay. How clear are you on what enough is for each container?
Enough from whose perspective?
From yours, from what you have capacity for.
How clear am I on how much I would need to put into each bucket, or how much I need from each bucket?
Both.
Medium?
Okay.
It depends.
Oftentimes the fuzziness around that, because we live in this society where nothing is enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's never enough. And especially with the needs in the world, in a lot of ways, because of the design of our social functioning, there isn't enough that you could give, right? As an individual, because
Mm-hmm.
systemic problems require systemic solutions, not a one-person solution ever. But there's this pull, especially when you're doing things that, are purposeful, meaningful, impactful in a way that changes the world. There's this sense that I have to put all the things in. Same thing happens with family. Same thing happens with finances. There's a lot of places where there's just a blurring of what enough is. So looking at what is enough, what do you need from a job? What is enough financially in that exchange of energy? Knowing that with a job in this society, the primary function is going to be to put food on your table and a roof over your head. And there's nothing wrong with it being like a job you love, something that has meaning. It is still important to remember that its primary function in this society
Mm-hmm.
is to cover the necessities, the things that money covers in our world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it can overlap with another place that feeds you, like intellectually, emotionally, all of those things. It can do that, but its primary purpose, its primary function is financial.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about those areas, like if you think about the areas that you want to be fed, how important is it to you that your job feed more than just the financial?
I think for me, work needs to be, at least to some degree, intellectually stimulating or fun. And I don't necessarily mean I need to be thinking about complex problems or, working with complex information. I loved waiting tables because there's just a lot happening. It was fun. I don't have the back for it anymore that I did at, 24, but yeah, something that's a little bit stimulating, because if I don't have something to keep my attention and focus, it's just like pulling teeth. And I think some sense of, I don't need joy necessarily in my work, but that's, relatively pleasant to engage with it and the people around me.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear, in addition to the financial piece, is that you would like it to be interesting
Mm-hmm.
and enjoyable environmentally. And I'm betting probably also, correct me if I'm wrong, that it is aligned with your values.
Yes, I don't want to work for something that is counter to my values.
Yeah.
Neutral or better would be great. Yeah, I really love creating things, building things, designing things, whether that's a virtual thing or a physical thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So interesting, enjoyable, values aligned, and creative. Cool. What other requirements do you have for the work?
The older I get, and especially post-pandemic, the capacity to have some flexibility and autonomy, at least to some degree, in my schedule, and the ability to work from home sometimes, like just having a little bit more autonomy over my space and time for the function of my house and also for my well-being. Like there are some days when my mental health is not good, or I cannot hold my focus in the morning, but I'm on fire with focus at night. Yeah, and to be able to do that.
Okay. Anything else?
I love, and I'm really good at working with people one-on-one, supporting them, advising, mentoring, helping them work through their questions and challenges and assumptions. I don't know if this is what you were looking for, is me like just listing things I like in work.
Yeah. Well, these are the important things to create a grounding,
Mm-hmm.
to create a centeredness in what you look for, rather than future goal setting. Like you said, I don't do the 5-year plan, but to be able to go, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up to life? What impact do I want to have? And what experience do I want to have in life? And those are those touch points to be able to check in as you do things to create that space. So it's not just this open, possibilities are endless, overwhelm, like, oh my God, I'm floating in space, what's happening? But to be able to go, I have a spaceship.
Yeah.
Like my spaceship is this. And I can check in. Am I getting too far away from my spaceship or the direction that I want to be moving in? Or do I need to change course because the direction I'm going is taking me to a place that doesn't fit with those 3 pieces of being? Maybe I'm finding out that my impact is different than the intention. So now I need to adjust how I show up so that the intention and the impact align. But those are the pieces that you use as like a touchstone.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And it's helpful to think about that in the sense of grounding myself in a touchstone, in a vehicle, in a home base. I think something I'm really enjoying and appreciating at this moment in my life is that I do have a good sense of self. I do think I have a good understanding of who I am, why I am, what I can do well, what is harder for me, what fulfills me and what drains me. I have a good sense of all those things. I just don't know what to do with any of it. It's like I'm at a taco bar and I have all these ingredients, but I have no idea how to make the taco, because I have been sort of in one area of the world, in academia, forever. And I don't have a sense of, how do I take this collection of things that I know about myself and figure out what that means for work?
Yes, this is exactly the piece that we're building out here, is rather than going, how do I make a taco? What do you want in the taco?
Right.
You will make the taco just organically, to use that word again, if you know what you want in it.
Okay. Maybe it's one of those things where you have to keep moving through it, and then understanding and clarity happen along the way. I feel like at moments in my life where I'm facing something big, like some big problem or trauma or something to get through, there's like a big boulder in my path. And at some point I have to face it and I have to move through it. And the moment that it looks the biggest, most overwhelming, most incomprehensible, and you see the least of it, is when you're right up against it. And you don't really understand it until you're through it and past it. And I think I'm at that point. I'm like, my nose is at the boulder. And like, I have all this stuff. I don't know how to move it forward. I don't know how to, in a really practical sense, see what jobs are out there that match these skills. I took a few career tests, like aptitude tests out in the world. The first one, the top result with a very high percentage was professional dancer. And I laughed so hard because in so many ways, that is the wrong answer. And then there was another one where the top answer was something equally just way off. And a lot of the careers were, go be an artist. And I need more stability than that in my life, or my anxiety and several reasons. And so I'm stuck at this point where I know who I am, but there's this black box between that and what do I do? What do I be when I grow up?
Yeah. How many people have you talked to about what they do?
Both a lot and not many. I've talked to a lot of people within certain worlds, within science, within academia, within education. Spent a lot of time advising and even doing career advising, ironically. But it's all for advising in careers that I wouldn't be interested in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I haven't talked to many people outside of academia besides those that are just in my social circle, and I'm curious about what they do. So I would love to talk to more people in different areas of work. I don't know what those are, I think. Like I have some close ideas, but.
What do you think lined you up with those two, the dancer and the artist?
So that particular test each question was a panel of 4 illustrations of somebody performing a task. And it said, not thinking at all about your training, your credentials, what you're actually like certified to do, which do you think you would enjoy the most? And I very often picked somebody that was like painting something or building something or doing something expressive against the other options. And I think I am a really creative, expressive, empathetic person. I'm a musician. It's really important to me. And I'm quite an introvert in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I love creating things, as I said. Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering what the other one pulled up.
It sounds like it's resonating with a vibe, not necessarily a particular career.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That can be one of those challenges with some of these is like, especially when you're in a transitory phase of life, like people are looking for something tangible and it's really like, you're not quite to the tangible, like specific thing yet. There's more exploration. There's more knowledge that needs to be gleaned, but there's a vibration there within what you're perceiving that is resonating. So that's why I asked, like, what do you think stood out with that? And it sounds like it's hitting with that creative and flow energy.
Yeah. I think some values things might have come up in those as well. Like I just don't ever see myself in a boardroom, even though I'm really good at running a meeting.
So some of that maybe exploring space, exploring environment. Those are other places where you can start to kind of create clearer container for work. I'm curious, because you said this a few times, the structure and stability. What does that mean to you?
In a very fundamental sense, I really want to know what days my paychecks are coming on and how many dollars they are so that I can plan ahead. Part of that is my personality. Part of that is not having to spend the cognitive and emotional space trying to manage all of that. And part of that is there have been a few acute financial traumas in my life, in my family, or because of medical things, where just the rug was pulled out in a moment. And so I no longer like hide cash around my apartment, which I did in my 20s, but that is very much still there.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to know that I'm a stable source of support for my partner as well.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, stable support is primarily financial.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other piece that plays into having stability within a job?
Yeah, I think in general, for me, generally predictable frameworks within which I work. I'm not sure that's, I need to think about that a little bit more. I think something that I've struggled with recently is work that the aims or the approaches might be shifting based on newly available information. I like having newness as far as different projects, but newness in an overall approach, uncertainty about what kind of work I might be doing, that feels hard for me.
So I'm hearing with that clear expectations.
Yeah. And clear expectations that I can build a framework for meeting. Yeah, if there's a way of thinking or communicating that is just going to be really hard for me, or I don't know how to build to that, that is more stressful. I don't know if that's a helpful clarification.
Yeah. A key part of having clear expectations is having communication, having a way to engage. One of the things that's fairly common with people who have ADHD is that you can work really well in high stress situations as long as there's a very clear framework, very clear rules, and there's no additional executive functioning that has to take place in terms of decision making in a split second moment sort of thing, because it's very clear. This is what you do when this happens. This is what you do when this happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So clear rules and expectations, creativity within those spaces.
Right.
Okay. These are the things to look for. This is the starting point for exploration. These are the needs that you have for work.
All right, I'm writing down.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send you my notes too if you'd like.
Okay, great.
Other buckets, other needs can be filled in other ways. So this is the starting point of knowing this is what this looks like. The other piece is defining capacity. What are the limits? This is what needs to come in. What capacity do you have? And capacity isn't just like, okay, after this point, I'm burnt out. It's capacity is like, this is how much I can give. This is what I'm willing to put in.
Mm-hmm.
Such as I'm willing to work flexible hours. I'm not willing to work on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to work project-based as long as there's space from projects.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can do intense project for 3 days and then I'm going to want a day off. So like I can do a push. It just can't be continuous push.
I see. Okay.
Or maybe it's, I need it to be regular. I need something that's not going to have intense pushes. I want routine in the work so that I know this is when I start, this is when I stop.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that, it helps to be able to, as you look for jobs, to have those needs in mind so you can have that conversation of what is the culture in this space? What does that look like? What are the expectations going to be? So what are your expectations of me? What are my expectations of you? Are they aligned?
That makes a lot of sense.
That way it's not just, here's all the things I can give you. Great, we will take all of it and more.
Yeah.
Because that is, again, that
Right.
enough
Right.
issue. How are you feeling?
My gears are turning. I'm just like marinating on all of these things. It's really helpful, I think, just hearing you ask these questions and name these options is liberating in the sense that you are implicitly voicing that these are different types of work structure out there. And these are not types of work structure that I have experienced as a student or as a teacher or as a staff member. So I don't know if that was what you were intending to do, but it did. That piece was really validating, and I took lots of notes, some questions for myself later too.
Yeah. This is a big process. So, that's just a normal thing that it's going to take a little time. It's going to take a little space to adjust. And we did a big Zoom over in one session to get you that. What is the foundation that you can work from? Because then it's exploring from that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try putting this in my taco. I'm going to talk to somebody who's put these things in their taco and see what did they think about that? What would they want to do differently if they could do it again? What do they like? What flavor combinations worked well? What do they like beyond that taco that would tell me whether or not they might pick a taco that I would like? Those sorts of things.
Yeah. The more you're talking, the more I'm realizing how sort of focused my sample is of all the people that I've talked to. So that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And heck, you can even, if you're on social media, put it out there. I'm looking for something that hits these check marks. Does anybody have a job that they like that hits those check marks? I'd love to learn about it.
That is literally the first step on my career exploration plan beyond like this. It's just like, who has a job for me?
Yeah. You never know with that sort of thing when you're looking at jobs, just talking to somebody, learning about it, then you can start to focus whether they can connect you or even whether you know what to look for when you search on LinkedIn or, put things out there, because the clearer you are on what you are looking for, what the qualifications for work that you have, not just what you bring to someone else's work, but what you're looking for, the more you can adjust what your resume looks like. You can adjust what you look for, who you talk to, all of those things, because they're all adjustable.
Yeah. What was it? Scarce-sighted? Scared? Nerve-sighted.
Oh, nerve-sighted.
I was feeling that as you were talking. I think also I recognize that historically that feeling means something really good or important is about to happen. So trying to lean into that.
Awesome. Yeah. One step at a time.
One step at a time.
Very cool. All right. What's your main takeaway today?
My main takeaway, I think, is that there is so much more to be explored. And even though it is unknown, I can take purposeful steps toward it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I hope you found listening to this episode supportive and got a few nuggets for yourself, whether or not you are in a career shift or just trying to navigate life as changes happen. I followed up with this woman and she let me know that right now she's in a bit of a holding pattern. There's a lot of grief, a lot of processing happening in her life, but she's surrounded by support from family, friends, and colleagues. And that is so important to have people, have a team around you that can show up for you and hold space for you while you navigate life. Because whether it is little just minutia of doing life or whether it is big upheaval like this client is experiencing, we need each other. We need people. And this society is way over isolated because of its over individualism. So I encourage you, reach out to your people, whether you are in a place where you super need them or not. Sustaining those relationships is so important. And if you are looking for additional support, as in some professional support, like a coach, like me, then I encourage you to grab a spot on my calendar for an exploration call. Or if you would like to be one of the people on my podcast getting a coaching session for free, then there's a link in the show notes for that too, and I encourage you to sign up. I've got an awesome episode interview coming up for next week, also around workplace navigation and creating change in the workplace. It's going to be awesome, so definitely stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you all next time. Thanks for listening. I so appreciate you being here. If you got something out of today's episode, please share it. Leave me a review, take a screenshot, and post it on social with a shout out to me. Send it to a friend or, all of the above. Want to hang out more? Join me on Instagram. Or better yet, get on my mailing list to make sure you don't miss out on anything. And remember, your possibilities are as unlimited as you are. Allow yourself to shine, my friend. The world needs your light. See you next time.